Welcome back to the channel. In this video, there will be 4 sections. I'll also upload 4 separate videos with each individual section. In the first section, I will address Tyla's interview on The Breakfast Club. The second section will include a brief discussion on misplaced anger. In the third section, I'll explain how Black American leaders help South Africans in their fight to end apartheid. In the fourth and final section, I'm going to wrap the video up with a brief history of colored people in South Africa. Please watch or listen to the entire video. There are timestamps in the video description. At the very end, I'm going to explain exactly why I think some Black Americans are not rolling out the red carpet for Tyla. It's going to shock you, so stay tuned. Now, while I'm addressing all of these topics, you are going to see comments that are from several social media platforms. The overwhelming majority of these comments are from South Africans, to the best of my knowledge. There may be 2 or 3 from other Africans, but most of them are from South Africans. The purpose of this video is to educate Black Americans on South Africa's history, because they have said some extremely disturbing things about us in these posts and tweets, and I want Black Americans to know where that frustration is coming from. And I am in no way saying that we should excuse it. It's totally unacceptable. I also want to educate South Africans on our community's role in helping them in their time of need, because clearly they don't know that we once stood together in solidarity. I also want South Africans to know that I have done my research. We were oppressed under similar systems. All of these things that you guys are ridiculing us about in our country are also happening to you in your country, so it's perplexing that you would stoop so low. What I'm questioning now is if whether or not Tyla will be the last colored music artist from South Africa who will be marketed to the Black American community. Because I've seen feedback from Black Americans, and it doesn't look good. One person even said they have no idea who Tyla is, and based on reactions from South Africans, they don't want to know who she is. Based on some of the comments that I've read, some South Africans don't think Black Americans have any power in this country. This isn't South Africa. You guys should keep reminding yourselves that Black Americans are not Black South Africans. Even though we are considered a minority group here, we have a lot of power. The Black dollar is powerful. The Black vote is powerful. We have a lot of power in this country, especially in the entertainment industry. This country is a superpower because of us. We built this country, and we have fought for everything that we have. You can't trust everything that you see about us in the media. Someone from South Africa joked that police officers are taking our lives, which is also happening in South Africa, by the way. But what you don't know is that the majority of the people whose lives are taken by police officers in this country are not Black. Those stories rarely make it to the news, and in order to understand why, you'd have to understand the agenda of the people who run this country, which I won't address in this video. I think some South Africans don't realize that sometimes you have to humble yourself when you're going to someone else for help. You can't show up on someone else's doorstep with an arrogant attitude and expect them to be a gracious host, especially not with Americans. America is not an African country. This is a totally different ballgame, and your behavior can make or break any South African artist who wants to come to this country and be successful. You can't be arrogant to people who grew up in the most powerful country in the world. You can't approach people in this country with narcissism. This is ground zero for arrogance and narcissism. They're going to remind you that they don't need you, you need them. And then they're going to close the door in your face. With all of that said, let's move on to section 1. During an interview with The Breakfast Club, Charlamagne asked Tyla about her previous remarks identifying herself as colored rather than Black. This sparked a debate, as colored is considered a slur in the US, but a normal term for mixed-race people in South Africa. Tyla avoided answering the question directly during the interview. Later, she posted a statement where she clarified that she never denied her Blackness, explaining that she is mixed with Black/Zulu, Irish, Mauritian/Indian, and colored ancestry. She said in South Africa she would be classified as colored, while in other places she would be considered Black, as race is classified differently around the world. She stated she is both colored in South Africa and a Black woman, embracing both identities. However, in the beginning, I don't recall her embracing her Blackness at all, but I digress. Let's move on to section 2. So where is all of this hostility coming from? Why are some South Africans using the same language and tactics that have been used to dehumanize and oppress both South Africans and Black Americans? I think it's misplaced anger. This is my personal opinion. I am not a mental health professional. Misplaced anger, also known as displaced aggression, refers to the phenomenon where an individual redirects their anger or frustration towards an unrelated person or object, rather than addressing the actual source of their anger. It is a common human response that occurs when the original target of anger is perceived as too threatening, unavailable, or when expressing anger directly towards that target is socially unacceptable or carries consequences. They see us thriving over here in America, and naturally, some of them may be envious of us. But instead of working with us, some of them have chosen to lash out at us. Here are some solutions to address misplaced anger or displaced aggression. Develop self-awareness. Recognize when you are experiencing misplaced anger and take a step back to identify the root cause of your frustration. Practice anger management techniques. Learn and implement healthy coping mechanisms, such as deep breathing exercises, mindfulness meditation, or engaging in physical activities to release tension. Improve communication skills. Express your feelings and concerns assertively and respectfully towards the appropriate person or situation, rather than bottling up emotions or lashing out at others. Seek counseling or therapy. If misplaced anger is a recurring issue, consider seeking professional help to address underlying emotional or psychological factors contributing to the behavior. Foster emotional intelligence. Cultivate empathy, patience, and emotional regulation skills to better manage anger and respond appropriately in challenging situations. Address underlying stressors. Identify and address the root causes of stress or frustration, such as workplace issues, relationship conflicts, or personal challenges, to reduce the likelihood of misplaced anger. Build a support system. Surround yourself with supportive individuals who can provide a listening ear and offer constructive feedback when you experience misplaced anger. By acknowledging and addressing misplaced anger or displaced aggression, individuals can develop healthier coping mechanisms, improve interpersonal relationships, and foster a more positive and productive environment for themselves and those around them. Now, in Section 3, we're going to explore the dark history of apartheid in South Africa and how the struggle against this oppressive system brought together people from around the world, including influential Black American leaders, to help dismantle it. If there are any errors in this summary, please let me know in the comments so I can address them. Apartheid was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination enforced by the South African government from 1948 until the early 1990s. It legalized the oppression of the country's non-white inhabitants, primarily the Black majority, denying them basic human rights and subjecting them to brutality and injustice. Under apartheid, people were divided into 4 racial groups: white, Black, colored, and Indian. The white minority held power and privilege, while the other groups were systematically marginalized and oppressed. They were forced to live in separate areas, denied access to quality education and healthcare, and stripped of their political rights. The psychological and mental toll of apartheid on South Africans, particularly the non-white population, was immense. Living under constant fear, discrimination, and dehumanization took a heavy toll on their mental well-being, as we can see in some of these comments. Families were torn apart, and generations grew up in a climate of hatred and oppression. Financially, apartheid created a deeply unequal society, where non-white South Africans were denied economic opportunities and access to resources, trapping them in a cycle of poverty and deprivation. As the struggle against apartheid intensified, Black American leaders and organizations played a crucial role in raising awareness and advocating for change. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Jesse Jackson, and the NAACP used their platforms to condemn apartheid and rally support for the anti-apartheid movement. The parallels between the oppression faced by Black Americans and the South African people under apartheid fostered a deep sense of solidarity and inspired Black American activists to join the fight for justice and equality. Through economic boycotts, divestment campaigns, and international pressure, Black American leaders helped shine a global spotlight on the atrocities of apartheid and contributed to its eventual downfall. In a future video, I'll address the question of if whether or not Black Americans are too compassionate, because it appears as though being compassionate has been our downfall. Historically, those who have been helped by us have turned their backs on us. Let's continue. After decades of resistance, protest, and international condemnation, the apartheid system began to crumble in the early 1990s. In 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections, and Nelson Mandela became the country's first Black president, marking the end of an era of oppression and the beginning of a new chapter of hope and reconciliation. Even though apartheid officially ended in 1994, as stated previously, its psychological scars run deep in South African society, and we're witnessing that in the comments that you see in front of you. The trauma of decades of institutionalized racism, oppression, and violence has had a profound intergenerational impact. Many Black South Africans still grapple with the lingering effects of living under a system that systematically dehumanized and devalued them. This has manifested in high rates of depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, within these communities. The forced removals, family separations, and loss of cultural identity during apartheid have also contributed to a sense of displacement and disconnection, affecting the mental well-being of individuals and communities. Furthermore, the lack of access to quality mental health services, particularly in disadvantaged areas, has perpetuated the cycle of unaddressed trauma and psychological distress. And what happens when people don't address their traumas is the misplaced anger that you see in front of you. Although Black Americans have a similar history, the difference is that we are in the richest country in the world. We have access to more resources and opportunities. And I believe that because they lack access to the resources required, some South Africans have grown accustomed to using force and intimidation to get what they want. There's a lot of bullying in these comments and tweets. There's a lot of intimidation, belittlement, and dehumanization. And I hope this is not normal behavior in South Africa. If it is, I know the women and children there must be suffering. I believe they're using a similar tactic that domestic abusers use on their victims. Their abuse leads to trauma bonding and Stockholm syndrome, and the victim does whatever the abuser tells them to do. I think they're using that tactic. That may work on other Africans, but that's not going to work on Americans, and unfortunately, I think the bridge has been burnt. Because even if South Africans change their tactics in the future and decide to use a friendlier approach, I think Americans are going to be skeptical. And keep in mind that this all started because Charlamagne asked Tyla for clarification. Charlamagne may not be my favorite person because of his controversial past, but I'm aware of his position in the entertainment industry. I believe someone above him, someone who has far more power, put him up to that. He's an intelligent man. He knows what a colored South African is. Someone else is interfering, and I don't think that's good news for Tyla. With that said, this last section is a brief history of colored South Africans. Their history is why I believe Tyla is having a difficult time connecting with Black Americans. You'll understand what I mean in a few moments. Again, please make me aware of any corrections that need to be made in the comments below. The term colored refers to a multiracial ethnic group in South Africa who have ancestry from various populations, including indigenous Khoisan, Bantus, Europeans, and Asians. They are primarily concentrated in the Western Cape region. During apartheid, the colored community in South Africa was used as a strategic buffer group between whites and Blacks, and they were granted more rights and privileges than Black South Africans. A buffer group refers to a social group that is deliberately granted certain limited rights, privileges, or concessions by a ruling power or authority, with the strategic aim of preventing unified opposition or resistance from multiple oppressed groups. It's a power move. Those in power throw the buffer group a few scraps to prevent them from aligning themselves with other marginalized groups. The goal is to prevent the marginalized groups from uniting. The buffer group gets a tiny slice more of the pie than the others, but it's still crumbs compared to what those in power are feasting on, and that's how they divide and conquer. At the end of the day, the buffer group believes they're valued by those in power, but they're not. They're just pawns. So again, colored South Africans were used as a buffer between whites and Blacks. The apartheid regime promoted the ideology of separate development for each racial group. Coloreds were designated as a separate group from Blacks, despite both being classified as non-white. This divide allowed the apartheid government to drive a wedge between colored and Black South Africans, disrupting unified opposition against white minority rule. Coloreds were given better housing, education, and social services, compared to Black Africans as part of this strategic policy of enforced segregation and preferential treatment. For example, segregated colored townships had better infrastructure and amenities than Black townships like Soweto. In the Western Cape province with a large colored population, more funds were allocated to colored education, healthcare, and housing than for Black Africans. Coloreds had limited rights to vote for colored-only representatives in certain elections, while blacks had no voting rights at all during apartheid. Job reservation policies also favored coloreds over blacks for certain skilled labor positions, although top jobs were still reserved for whites. However, these relative advantages were still extremely limited compared to the privileges of white South Africans under the apartheid system. So while still oppressed and discriminated against, coloreds occupied a marginal middle ground by official design, granted more rights than blacks in an attempt to sow division and undermine unified resistance against white supremacy. This buffer role was a calculated political strategy by the apartheid regime. This is why I believe a lot of Black Americans are not rolling out the red carpet for Tyla. I believe this is why so many Black Americans are still asking Tyla for clarification. Although things are different today, Tyla belongs to a race of people who we would call the right arm of white supremacy in America. Based on my research, colored people helped white supremacists oppress Black South Africans. Please correct me if I'm wrong. She belongs to a race of people who were used to perpetuate the oppression of Black South Africans, and I believe a lot of Black Americans are highly offended that she is being marketed to our community. Again, our history is similar to Black South Africans. Why would you market someone to this community who belongs to a group that worked against people like us? This is one of the many mistakes that Tyla's team has made. I believe people in my community feel disrespected, and that's why the racial questions persist. I don't think it's about forcing Tyla to identify as Black. I think people are turned off by the fact that we are being asked to support a person who belongs to a group that benefited from the oppression of other Black people. We're still fighting for our rights in this country. We fight every day. In America, one of the reasons why so many of our civil rights leaders were light-skinned and biracial or multiracial is because they tried to use them as a buffer group against Black Americans, but they declined, for the most part. Instead, they aligned themselves with Black Americans. That solidarity is one of the reasons why we still call them Black today. That solidarity is also one of the reasons why you'll see a very light-skinned Black or mixed-race person in a relationship with a dark-skinned Black person. In America, Black is not only a race, but it's also an ethnic group, which is why people who may be half Black or even a quarter Black can identify as Black in this country. I also believe many Black Americans believe that it's in poor taste to ask this community to elevate Tyla when we have Black American artists who need our support. Again, we're still fighting white supremacy in this country. If we're going to elevate an artist, most Black Americans would probably choose to elevate someone who is from this country. I don't have recent stats for the Breakfast Club's demographics, but in 2020, the show had over 8 million listeners a month, and the majority of those listeners were Black. So she is indeed being marketed to the Black American community. She is collaborating with Black American artists and influencers. We are indeed being asked to boost the career of someone who would probably look down on us in her own country. I believe that's why so many Black Americans aren't feeling Tyla. I know my channel is small, and not many people will see this video, but I hope some South Africans find this video and weigh in on it. If you are a Black South African, please let me know if I have made any errors in this video about your history. Were colored people used as a buffer group to keep you guys oppressed? Did they benefit from your oppression? Do they still view you as inferior? These are things that Black Americans need to know. If you are a colored South African, please weigh in. If you are a Black American who would like to address the topics in this video, I'd like your input as well. If there are corrections that need to be made, again, list them below and I'll address them in a future video. If you're interested in more content like this and entertainment news on occasion, be sure to like this video, share it, and subscribe or follow us. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.